Hey, all. Double G here with Brad Evans. We are Thompson to Clark, and we are here on the Bleacher Report stream, which we really enjoyed doing. We're here to talk about the start to the Giants season here. And Brad, I guess my first question to you is 14 and 15 good enough for you at this point?
You know, when you look at the start of the season, all right, this is the 1 month check-in, right? So you look at the start of the season and you see this team goes 6-10, and you think, flailing, man, we we really need to turn things around. And they did. They've gone 8-5 in their last 13 games. So you look
Yeah.
at the second half of the first month and you say, let's take that. Let's do splits.
Yes.
We always go to Fangraphs, we go to Baseball Reference, and we love splits because that kind of tells you the true story. This is it an 8-5 team over the last 13 games? Starting pitching would tell you yes. Offense would tell you no, and we're going to dig into all of that in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, obviously, overall record not good enough to compete and try to nab yourself a playoff spot. But if they continue playing the type of baseball they have over the last half month of the season, yeah, this is a team that can take the 6 spot, the 5 spot, maybe even the 4 spot. But there are a lot of good teams in the National League right now. National League Central is kind of beating each other up. National League East, you have the beast out there in Atlanta. The Mets are kind of hanging around. Giants took 2 out of 3 from the Mets when they
Yep.
came here, so that's always a good sign too. But yeah, I think going forward, there's some things that need to get fixed. This is if you just sit on this team as it is right now, you could easily, instead of going 8-5 in your next 13 games, you can go 5-8. I mean, that's the type of team this is. So there are some things that definitely need to be fixed.
Couple of good things after looking at the first month. We expected the Dodgers to be in first place, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They are not running away with anything quite yet. I think they have their own issues at the back end of their order, and they're always going to have issues, I think, with starting pitching kind of throughout the year. But they're just so talented and probably really just top heavy that they have enough firepower to just kind of figure it out. And
Right.
they have a smart front office. So if they whatever they may need at the deadline, they're probably going to make that happen. But if you look throughout the rest of our division here, there's no Diamondbacks, 13 and 16. Though one of my favorite things to quickly look at is run differential, because it kind of
Right.
says, oh, are they losing some close games, or are they getting blowouts? And they're a plus 29. And so that bodes well for them, because they would be third in the National League in run differential, just behind the Braves at 19 and 7 and the Dodgers at 18 and 12. So the Diamondbacks would probably have some tough luck, and I know they've had some injuries. San Diego Padres 14 and 17, right around where the Giants are. Giants are 14 and 15. So they're right in the middle there. There's a lot of teams. You mentioned the Mets, the Pirates, the Reds. They're all sort of right in the middle. The Cardinals, the Nationals. But there are some standout teams. The Phillies, the Braves, great start. Milwaukee Brewers, great start. Dodgers, of course. So what we see at the end of the first month is really the Giants are playing 500 baseball, and there's going to be a lot of teams that are playing 500 baseball. Now, what I also expect, though, is some of these teams, as we get into May and June, they are going to separate a little bit. And so it's a little murky as far as trying to figure out, are we a playoff team? Are we a wild card or not? They really just have to keep playing competitively. And I think, winning at home is going to be very important. I was there on Wednesday of last week, and I will say,
Not a good game to go to.
not a great game. Maybe the worst game of their recent stretch, save for the Blake Snell implosions that we've seen.
Well, and like you mentioned, that 17-1 game against the Diamondbacks, they have a run differential of plus 29.
Yeah,
And
that's a bit.
take that game away,
Yeah,
make that a 5-4 game, and
right,
yeah,
right, totally.
yeah.
So that game, I think, was a nice introduction to if what I'm seeing on TV is what it is, and that the offense, I think, is the big issue. But if you look at they're right in the middle on most of the offensive categories. So it's not like the Giants have this terrible, terrible offense. They're just average. They just have an average offense, and so you would hope that that would improve at some point. And then the pitching, we've seen the pitching. So what we're going to do on this show is we're going to talk about what we believe has been working, what Brad calls the good work, and what hasn't been working, what we believe needs work. And so I'm going to let Brad kick this off because a lot of what I saw on Wednesday, I think, is going to fit into this discussion really nicely. But do you want to go positive or negative first?
Let's go positive.
Okay.
Let's kick this off. Let's do what the Giants do. Let's win the series early and then lose the final game of this series, but still win the series.
Yeah.
And then, not like, I mean, this game against the Pirates a little bit different, but the way they do it is win the first two games, lose the last game ugly, and you go home feeling like, what the heck just happened? And what's wrong with this team? But you forget they won the series. So.
I will say, though, it was nice because last 2 weeks or the previous week was the first winning week of the season.
Yeah.
And then they had a 4-2 week last week. So that was nice. Yeah. It is nice to see, those victories there and to where you do win a series. Like winning a series, like if you think about it, 2 out of 3 games, like so be it. You're going to lose some series where you only win one. But it does make you feel like you're moving in the right direction.
Right.
So if you take 2 out of 3, it is a positive thing. And then you just hope, there's the age old adage, win, 66% of your games at home and then split on the road. And you're kind of in good fashion there. And if you look at the Giants home and road splits, they're not playing 500 ball on the road. And so that is, hopefully they can get a little bit closer. But if you're a winning team at home and you're close to 500 on the road, I think you're going to be in the mix for one of these wild cards.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what this team is doing right now. But they've really got to keep it going forward. So what's working this season? And something we as Giants fans were not used to under the Kapler era, and that's starting pitching going deeper into ball games, starting pitching, having quality starts where we're not having to dip into the bullpen. We don't have openers. We've had one opener this season.
The right? Game that I went to.
The game that you go to. So don't go to any. Well, actually, you're going to 2 games with me. We can't have any openers on those 2 games in July that we're going to.
I'm actually going to see the Dodgers in a couple weeks when they come here as well.
So. Okay. Well, hopefully there's more orange in the crowd than blue.
Oh.
It's been ugly the last couple of seasons, but so what works right now? Giants are 10th in the majors in starting pitching innings with 154. At this point last season, the Giants were 27th in the league with 130 innings pitched.
Big difference.
Starting ERAs, almost identical. 3.59 last year, 3.61 this season. But the difference is those quality starts, fresher bullpen. We just saw Camilo Doval pitch 3 straight 9th innings over the past 3 games. One of them was in a tie ball game, but then he got 2 saves Friday night and then Sunday. So I think that's going to bode well going forward for the Giants. If you also look at starting pitching for the Giants this season, and you look at the actual starters, we always kind of give it to Logan Webb and say, hey, Logan Webb is the guy because he's eating innings. But looking at innings this season, Logan Webb, 38 2/3 innings, which I think is near the top in the majors. Jordan Hicks, right behind him with 4 less innings at 34. Keaton Wynn, right behind him with 4 less innings and 5 less innings than Logan Webb, is Kyle Harrison. You know what that's called? That's called a rotation.
Yeah. We did not have last year.
No, and we were so excited when the Giants signed Jordan Hicks and said, okay, here's a guy we're going to plug in. They go and trade for Robbie Ray. We'll get him later in the season. Blake Snell, things aren't quite working out yet. Blake Snell has had a couple of rough starts. Then he had the we'll just call it groin. I mean, it's around that area, right? The
Is it
flexor.
yeah, I thought at first I thought it was like adductor or abductor, whichever
Yeah.
one it fits the bill. But yeah, the growing is interesting, and I kind of wonder based on his delivery, like if that's going to be something that's going to be bugging him for a little while.
Yeah, it could. You and I call that the got out of bed too fast strain because, we're older. But yeah, it's something Blake Snell has dealt with in the past. So that's kind of a question going forward. He could miss, God, he could miss like 3 or 4 weeks,
Yeah,
unfortunately. And that's quite a few starts. It's probably going to be about 5 starts or so. And when
and
you're paying a guy to pitch one season
right.
and he's going to be gone after the season, you kind of go all in. Seeing a guy like Keaton Wynn throwing like he did yesterday and like he did earlier in the week, and is just pitching lights out with a splitter right now, mixing in the slider. He's got a good fastball. If he can hold up, if Jordan Hicks can hold up, and that was a question mark at the beginning of the season. So the question mark at the beginning of the season was, yes, we have a 5-man rotation, but it looks like we might have a bunch of 5 and dive guys or 4 and dive even because Keaton Wynn doesn't have the innings under his belt. Jordan Hicks has a few starts in his career, but he's a closer being, converted to a starter. So those were all question marks. And so far, fingers crossed, toes crossed, everything crossed, going into the second month of the season, things are looking good at this point, and the innings are being taken care of by the starters. Which again, if you can bridge it to later into the ball game, and you can get Ryan Walker in there, and you can get Eric Miller in there. Taylor Rogers looked a little rough the other night, gave up a couple of home runs and extras, but lefty against righties, that was a tough matchup. Got to question that bullpen move as well. When the Giants have so many righties in the bullpen, but that's just kind of the way it was. Those things happen. But yeah, I mean that's what is working so far is starting pitching, and you love to see it because you and I are throwback guys. We love our starting pitching. We love our guys that can go complete games. I know we're not going to you'll get that from Webb every now and then, but having starting pitching and having a rotation just kind of gets us pretty excited.
Here's a question though, because of what you just said, the starting pitching going into games, deeper into games, helpful to the bullpen. The bullpen wore out last year as we got to the later part of the season. Keaton Wynn, what a surprise. I think we had high hopes for him, but he's been even better than we thought. Kyle Harrison, their number one prospect, to see him throw a game like he did the other night was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And Logan Webb is just the stalwart. Like Logan Webb, having a guy like Logan Webb, I think is even more understated. He is like underrated for what he does for that pitching staff, because think of all the turnover that pitching staff has gone through. And when you sign a Blake Snell and you go, oh, Blake Snell's going to come in and he's going to be our ace right out of the gate, right? Like most teams, if they sign a Blake Snell, that's what you're expecting. He's going to be our ace. He's going to come out and he's going to be our number one. He did not. And historically, I guess this is kind of par for the course when it comes to him early in the season. This is not that much of a surprise, though some of those games were even worse than I think we thought they would be. And now he's pushed back. So that beginning of the season just kind of gets extended, probably closer to the middle of the season. And we're just going to be hopeful that second half Blake is really going to be second half Blake. But imagine if Blake was signed to be the ace and this happened. This is why when you have a Logan Webb, he is your stalwart. Like if you're Bob Melvin and you're getting into 2 games before it's Logan Webb's turn, you go, do I need to pull this guy a little bit early? Can we win this game if I turn it over to the bullpen early, knowing that possibly for Logan Webb's game, the cupboard might be bare. And then you go, well, he's going to go 7. So we'll worry about that when it gets there. Let's go win this game. And that's what having that ace really can mean sometimes. So not to say, Logan Webb is the next coming of Juan Marichal or anything, but at the same time, I do feel like he's a bit underrated for what he provides in the consistency for this pitching staff, because they take command from him, right? He sets the tone,
Right.
and then they come in and they follow. Like Jordan Hicks, like pitches like almost exactly like Logan Webb right at this point, right? The way that he attacks. So that is one thing. Now here's another question, because of what you just said about the great starting pitching. We know Alex Cobb is struggling a little bit in his comeback from injury, so he's been pushed back. They've been able to push him back as well with some confidence because of what they've been able to get so far. So you can kind of do it and go, okay, right now we're fine. Like, let's fix Cobb so that he's at his best. Robbie Ray is going to be the same way. Who knows how he's going to come back, but they should be able to be patient with him if they continue to get this high quality starting pitching. Now, for Snell's perspective, though, if Snell does get pushed back, I do think they're going to need to bring somebody up. They're going to need to create some 40-man space. Is that going to be a Mason Black?
I would think he's the next in line at this point. If something happens to anybody, he's got to be the next in line. I know Giants fans don't want to hear it, but you look at Dalton Jeffries' numbers in AAA since his blow-up game against the Padres, which was only game 2 of the season, 3 of the season for the Giants, or 4. I can't remember. I think it was Easter Sunday. So it was game 4 of the season. But when you look at his numbers in AAA, he's really kind of come around. So he may actually get the next call, and then possibly Mason Black at that point. Because when you look at Alex Cobb's injury, so he had the hip surgery, right? And then he comes back, and everybody starts talking about how he's on track to possibly even begin the season in the rotation. Well, that doesn't happen. He needs a couple of rehab starts, still throwing in Arizona, and then starts to have shoulder issues. So once he starts having shoulder issues, they have to do an MRI. Everything looks good. They're still going to hold him off a little bit. That being said, yes, Keaton Winn pitching well is nice to see, and it gives you a little bit of comfort pad. But the more Cobb is out, you kind of start to think about, do we still have that pad? Is Keaton Winn going to all of a sudden lose that? It's early in the season. He's pitching really well. Like I said, that splitter is nasty. It could possibly be even one of the best in the majors. And so you start to lose a little bit of that comfortability in between. Is that even a word? Did I just make up
comfortability?
Comfortability. It's probably a word.
I think so.
You start to lose a little bit of that because you wonder, can Keaton Winn keep it up? So, but yeah, when you look at Dalton Jeffries, when you look at Mason Black in the minors, and you say, we do have some insurance if we need a starter. I don't want to, personally, as a Giants fan, I don't want to see the opener route again. Yes. I love Ryan Walker in the back end of the bullpen. I mean, he struck somebody out. I can't remember who it was.
It was Reynolds.
It was Reynolds. It was Brian Reynolds, our friend Brian Reynolds. Struck him out on his nasty, nasty slider that hit him in the back foot with the bases loaded. So that's when you're hitting guys that are striking out, that's fantastic. It means you have nasty, nasty movement. I don't want to see that as an opener. We saw him as an opener last year, which was great, but then he got burned out by the end of the season.
He did.
He's a big bullpen weapon. So let's, if we can avoid going that route, I'd rather see Dalton Jeffries come up and throw 4 innings, 5 innings, maybe give up 3 runs, and then you kind of turn it over to the bullpen at that point. But yeah, I think that pad is getting a little bit shorter as Alex Cobb stays out a little bit longer.
Okay, here's another question, and we talked about this in the preseason, which is when you get Cobb back, when you get Snell back, when you get Robbie Ray in, whenever that happens, you don't have room for everybody. And then it becomes Logan, and then maybe Hicks stays in the rotation. But what about
Yeah.
Harrison? Do you, because there was a article by Andy Baggerly the other day about how 140-ish to 160-ish is kind of where they want the innings to sit for Hicks and Harrison. They don't want to push it past that because they want to still prepare these guys for the future and for going much longer. They're so early in their career, especially with Hicks not really being a starter in the big leagues. So there's going to be opportunity, I think, and we're the ones that made this. We're taking credit for it here, where you get the Jordan Harrison combination as your 5 starter, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's Harrison to start and go 4, or Hicks goes 4, and then the next guy comes in and throws 3, and then you turn it over to the bullpen. Like, that would be nice as your 5th starter. It's not an opener, but you're also not sending these guys deep. They're maybe turning over the order once and going into it a second time, and then not a third time, and you're coming with the right-handed, sinker baller who can reach back for high 90s, and then you're coming back with the with the 4-seam lefty, and I think it creates a little bit of a fun advantage. But that is something down the line as we look further into the season. That is something that they're going to have a problem, and it's probably going to be a pretty good problem, because I didn't even mention Keaton Wynn as part of that. But if he continues to pitch the way that he's pitching, he's going to be like, hey, guys, I'm sitting here and I've been pitching really well. Don't forget about me. Yeah. And that's going to have to be part of the conversation, I think.
Well, that and another thing you can do too is you can alternate starts. So you can have Jordan Hicks go on his regular day, pitch as long as he can go. And then his next turn in the rotation, that's a Kyle Harrison start. And Jordan Hicks is your long reliever in that situation, day before, day after, however they do it with the arms on the days that you throw a bullpen. They could be ready. And then next time around, they swap roles. So you could do that as well. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility. And let's not forget about Tristan Beck. There's a chance he comes back later in the season. But at that point, you're going to have so many arms. I think you don't rush Tristan Beck back. You let him finish out the season in AAA. And then next season, when you don't have possibly Robbie Ray, and you don't have possibly more than likely Blake Snell, now all of a sudden you have a stable of arms. And then you have a Jordan Hicks who has built up his arm in innings, probably maybe 120, 130, 140 innings this season. And then maybe he can go 160, 170 next season. So yeah, I mean, it's like I was talking to somebody on X, Twitter, earlier today, and it's one of those awesome problems to have, because everybody is fighting for starting pitching when the end of the season rolls around and everybody's tired. Well, the Giants have built that up where you have an arsenal and you have reserves. So it's going to be fun.
It's a little bit of the anti-Dodgers, because what has been the ailment for the Dodgers as they go into the postseason is their starting pitching is just dust, but by the time they get there. So I like the reverse of that, which is what the Giants are doing. So that is our good work, or what's working right now. Let's go to the negative. What is not working?
All right. What needs work? And we all know this. If you're a Giants fan,
I saw it. I saw it on Wednesday, live and in color.
You know this needs work, and that's early runs. This team can score. This team can hit. They can drive in runs in scoring position, but for some reason, not until the 7th inning. And that's when they can get to the bullpen. So bullpen arms, they seem to do well against. Starting pitching, let's just take the first 5 innings, because that's where things are kind of rough. So the first 5, let's go 1 through 3. First 3 innings, the Giants' OPS plus is 76. Okay, remember 100 OPS plus is league average. Innings 4 through 6, Giants OPS plus is 84. So it's a little bit better. Innings 7 through 9, their OPS plus is 136. Massive jump. Back end of the bullpen, the Giants can beat up those arms for some reason. But starters, they have a hard time picking things up early and running with it. They've scored 114, 76 of their 114 runs in the fifth through ninth inning. That's 66% of their runs from like the fifth inning on. When you look at the lineup, okay, 1 through 5, is it a table setting problem? Not looking at this, it's not. Jung-Hoo Lee, first 5 innings, hitting 290 WRC plus. We like to use weighted run creation plus. It's a good stat to look at it because it kind of takes into effect RBIs, getting on base, runs, stolen bases, how you create runs. His WRC plus is 112. League average is 100. Lamont Wade Jr. hitting 289, WRC plus of 119. Then cover your eyes, cover your ears, because it gets so nasty after that. Jorge Soler, we keep talking about this. He's not your prototypical 3-hole hitter. 1 through 5, he's hitting 153 with a 45 WRC plus.
He is at like a historic level of not driving in runs. So
exactly,
we were at the game on Wednesday. He either I can't remember if it was bags loaded or 2 on, but there were 2. I think there were 2 opportunities. One was a strikeout, and one was like a mile high pop up. And the feeling as you're watching it is he's on it. Like he's gonna, he's gonna do it. But when you're watching live, I was like, bat's a tiny bit slow for how big and strong and powerful he is. So there's something, I don't know if he's not seeing certain things or, why would somebody's bat be slow? Maybe there's a small injury or something, but whatever it is, when he's up to the plate, you feel like he's going to get the hit. And then you watch the at bat and you're like, there's something a little bit off. I don't want to say it's Pedro Serrano-ish.
I was about to say,
but like, it could just be, a mechanical thing that they're looking into. But the feeling that I get when he's up there is, oh, he's going to do it. And he's just not performing right now. So that's something to look for. I imagine it'll even out. I imagine he'll have plenty of opportunity to drive in runs. And we're going to be like, oh man, this guy is just so clutch with runners on. But it is a thing. And I know you're going to bring this guy up. My son, who is he really leans towards the younger players and giving the younger players an opportunity. His one comparison was Luciano can do that. Like, and it was mostly in the direction of Matt Chapman, just not, Matt Chapman.
But he can't do the glove.
That's not the defensive piece of it. And that's the thing. That's the reason he's out there. But I do wonder that left side of the infield, Nick Ahmed is hitting completely fine for a 9-hole hitter. We know that that's probably not going to be the entire season. But if Matt Chapman's hitting low 200s, which is what he hit last year, even though he did have a hot start, you kind of wonder, like, can you afford to have the entire left side of your infield not really doing much? And then you're just sort of dependent on other parts of that order. How do you hide? Bob Melvin trusts Chapman. He's still hitting him higher in the order, but at what point is Matt Chapman your 7th hitter or your 8th hitter? I saw Patty Bales was getting some 3-hole opportunities recently. So that's interesting. The way that he manages that lineup, knowing the trust and the faith that he has in Chapman, we'll see if that stays or if they're stubborn about that, or if he's like, we have to put the hotter hitters up in the order so that we can actually score some runs earlier in the ball game.
And that's the key to this too, because Conforto usually batting 4th, 241, 70 weighted run creation plus. Chapman, who we just talked about, 207 with a 76 WRC plus. Thairo Estrada, 212. This is all 1 through 5 innings.
First inning through 5th inning.
Yeah, everything after that, they kind of turn it on. Estrada, 82 WRC plus. Yaz, 194 with a 78 WRC plus. Pat Bailey, who we just talked about, popping up in the lineup a little bit, but normally batting 8th, 263 average, 124 WRC plus. Get him up there, help him drive in some runs. And Nick Ahmed hitting 250 with a 65 WRC plus. But again, when you're in the 9-hole, and you have those guys hitting in front of you who are just not getting on base, your WRC plus isn't going to be that hot. But do we want Nick Ahmed batting third, fourth, fifth? No, that's not the type of hitter he is. So, I mean, part of it is lineup construction. Part of it is those power hitters. Those guys need to either drive in runs or get on base. And once that starts happening in the early innings, now all of a sudden you're taking something that's working really well for the Giants and starting pitching and going deep in games and holding the opposition to low runs through 7 innings. Now all of a sudden you're taking the pressure off of them because you're driving in early runs, first inning, second inning, third inning, fourth inning. You're scoring 3 runs, 4 runs. And then all of a sudden, starting pitching who's given up 1 run can kind of like, hey, now I can bear down and just absolutely attack the strike zone. Because when you have to be too fine, you are going to make mistakes. When it's a 0-0 ball game or a 1-1 ball game, and then you give up 2 runs, all of a sudden you feel like, man, I have to be even finer because this team's not going to score until the 7th inning, 8th inning. And I don't know what situation we're going to be in then. So that's something that's not working. Early runs, if the Giants can really start to kind of pour that on, this could be a very tough. You could look at the last 13 games, and instead of 8-5 or 8-5, you could be looking at 10-3, 11-2. I mean, this could be a team that, although, when we do lose, we lose like 8-2. So not a whole lot you can do in those situations.
Yeah, we make it worth it to lose. Yeah. So I guess the one thing I would like to see is I want to see somebody break out, right? We want to see who's going to get hot and who's going to kind of carry the hotness of and just like kind of set the tone and people start catching fire. Because from the batting average perspective, now Lamont Wade only has 62 at bats versus Jung-Hoo Lee and Conforto already in the 100s. Tyro has over 100 as well. Lamont Wade's hitting 339 with a 450 on base. He's gonna play. He's gonna continue playing a lot, but you wonder if because of that, because Wilmer and him have the same amount of at-bats almost, but he's got 6 more hits, which is like for an on-base percentage, he's 120 points higher in the on-base, and he's about 175 points higher in the slugging. I wonder if you start trusting Lamont, just because also not just because he's hitting better, but he just gets on base more. He walks more. I wonder if you start trusting him a little bit more and maybe not doing the lefty righty dance with Wilmer, especially later in games. You look at Bailey, catcher's not going to lead the league or lead the team in at bats because he's going to have to take, he's going to have to sit the wear and tear, but he's also, producing in his 71 at bats. I think it's going to take Jung-Hoo Lee really to get hot and set the table, especially in these 1 through 5 innings that you're talking about. Now, if you look at his numbers for somebody who's very new to this league, I think they're totally fine. Like he's got, he is third on the team in walks behind Soler and Wade. So his eye is great. He's out of the regulars, he struck out the least amount of times for folks with over 70 ABs. And, he also has 2 stolen bases, but he's been caught 3 times. Not great.
Exactly.
He got picked off a couple times, I think.
He'll learn that. That's a thing in this league. You'll start to learn guys' moves. You'll see left-handed moves a little bit more often, some of the nasty moves that some of these guys have over to first base. So I think he'll get that eventually. And he's hitting 290 in the first 5 innings.
Yeah. So I say that, and we'll end the show with this. I say that to say this, which is some of it is going to be the guys who they have heating up. You saw Yaz heat up. I mean, he started so slowly this year, but he is starting to heat up. Austin Slater has not. Austin Slater has not done much this year. But it's going to be some of those regulars who are going to need to put some of those numbers up, because what you want and what Farhan and Pete Patilla want to see is like, okay, what is our team like when we're not hitting? What is our team like when we're hitting okay? What is our team like when we're actually, putting runs on the board? I think they're going to have to make a move. And I've been saying this since the preseason. When you go and get Blake Snell and Chapman and Soler and Jung-Hoo Lee, you're basically saying we are going for a playoff spot. You don't sign those guys to 1-year deals for the future because you're not going to have them.
Right.
And this is the year. Unfortunately for us, Mike Trout is like the MVP of baseball again.
Yeah.
So that's the one I was hoping. I was hoping for slumpiness, and I was hoping for Mike Trout kind of getting angry with the team. And no, but that didn't happen. So it will cost a lot. But they're going to have to get a bat, and I think it's going to have to be a corner outfielder because Yaz is a fantastic fourth outfielder. He'd be one of the most valuable fourth outfielders in the league. As a starting outfielder, he's not as valuable, but still a quality player, especially in right field defensively. Like you saw some really good stuff from him, and he's just such a different defensive player in right field than he is in center field. So I still think that there's a move to be made, and they need some protection. Soler is like a 5 or a 6 hitter who you depend to hit 30 jacks. He's not your number 3 and your number 4 hitter. Same with Conforto, right? Conforto in a perfect world is a 5 or a 6. He's not a 3 or a 4. And
you need that 3-hole hitter.
You need that 3 or 4. Similarly to how Logan Webb sets the tone for that pitching staff, you need a guy. Now I know those guys are not easy to come by, or else we would have one. If we had if Shohei and Mookie Betts were just let's go find that guy, we would have found them a long time ago.
Sure.
But they're hard. But there are going to be opportunities to get guys. You're going to be able to look at some of these teams that are just off to just terrible starts, and they may be looking to offload some bigger dollar players. And the Giants have money if they want to spend. So that is kind of what I want to see happen. Is we may have to give up a Luciano who has just been in this farm system forever, and a top prospect in our eyes for a long time. We just can't wait for this guy to come up, and he's going to hit, a lot of home runs in Sacramento. But you kind of have to give something to get something, and if they can find an outfielder who can hit near the top of the order and be productive, this is the year to do it, because next year we're doing this dance all over again with trying to find guys to come in and play because, for whatever reason, we couldn't get the guys who want to sign the 5-year deals or whatever. So that is my last bit here before we shut down on the Bleacher Report version of the show. We will be, we will add to the podcast feed. We'll add a couple extra minutes, but is there anything else that you want to add before we get out of here?
I just want to see this team. I mean, we're going into a tough road trip, going to Boston, going to Philly, and then one of our least favorite places, going to Colorado. So I'd love to see them come out of this trip unscathed. Game over 500. Philly's hot. Boston's a tough
playing
place.
Okay. Yeah.
Well,
Boston's playing well from a run differential perspective.
Yeah, and you got to go across the country. So you're going to East Coast time and playing. So that's always tough. Doesn't matter who you play. You saw they're going to Tampa Bay. They have a tough time, even though Tampa Bay is a good team, but still you just have a tough time on the East Coast. So I'd like to see them come out, a game over 500, 2 games over 500 after this road trip. And I think I'd be feeling good about this team coming back home and the future with some arms coming back too.
Yes. All right. So we're going to shut it down for here. We're going to be back on Bleacher Report in May, 3 times in May.
Yeah.
Or at this, not on Mondays, but on Wednesdays at this very time that we recorded today. So we'll be seeing folks on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific for this show. So thanks everyone for hanging out with us. I am Double G. This is Brad. We'll see you when we see you. Peace out.
Peace.
All right, a little Thompson and Clark extra here. We just did our show for Bleacher Report, And we're going to do 3 more this year, so which means that we won't have the live streams on this channel, but the podcasts will go up as normal. And we're probably, because those Bleacher Report shows are only 30 minutes or so, sometimes we go a little bit longer. We'll probably do like what we're doing right now, and we'll add a little bit of an extra piece to that we usually do on our normal show, so that if you are watching on demand or if you are listening to the audio feed, you get the full Thompson to Clark experience here. So we do not do our player of the week on the Bleacher Report show. So Brad, who is our player of the week for this week?
It was kind of tough. I love Yaz. He's been taking an absolute beating the last, basically since the season started. Everybody wants him DFA'd or traded, or
which is so silly.
I know.
He's got so much value.
Bring up Ramos. He's a left-handed bat in the outfield, and his glove is fantastic. You saw, Friday night he makes a play in the corner in right field in the 9th inning that saves a run, allows the Giants to go to the bottom of the 9th, where Patrick Bailey hits the 3-run home run. I wanted to go with Yaz. I love Yaz, but there's another guy who's been shining big time, and we're extremely happy to have him in our starting rotation, and that is Keaton Winn. Over the last 2 weeks, he's had 2 starts. He's gone 12 innings. He's given up only 7 hits, 2 earnies, 1 home run, 2 walks, and has struck out 11. That's good for an ERA of 1.50. When you look at his FIP during that time, it was also pretty nasty, 3.18. You look at his xFIP, 2.57. Jordan Hicks had 1 start, and he had a nice FIP of 0.18, which is always awesome. But Keaton Winn with those 2 starts, getting 2 wins, going deep into ball games, saving the bullpen. That is easily our player of the week. So happy to have him in the staff. And we knew it kind of going into it. A lot of people have been talking about it. Pitching Ninja, a couple other sites on X have been talking about how nasty his splitter was. And then when you get to actually see it from the center field camera over and over and over again as a Giants fan, you go, man, that is a really, really good pitch. It's Kevin Gossman material type of pitch.
And they're saying that he's essentially throwing it in any count. Yeah, you worry a little bit about that elbow tug when you throw that splitter that often, but he already has so much confidence in it in the big leagues to be able to throw it, like you'd throw your changeup or whatever. So that is really cool. When I saw Logan Webb start, I was like, oh, Logan Webb's going to win player of the week. He just is so dominant. But then Keaton Winn got 2 starts and was like, nope, here we go. This is mine. So before, we're only going to do a couple more extra minutes here after the Bleacher Report show. But heading into Boston, now, it's always kind of scary to me. I don't know if you feel the same way, but if I see an early game time and I see East Coast, I just kind of get weary. I'm just like, that stretch, that swing, it just seems so nasty. And you got Boston and you got Philadelphia, 2 really good baseball teams. The Giants showed some momentum, but like we talked about a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, I said this home stretch of games bodes well for them schedule wise. And I think they went like 8-5 in that stretch. The schedule does not fare as well here going into two ballparks on the East Coast of 2 good teams. 50-50 would be great. I don't know. Is it 6 games that they're playing in those?
I got to do math. 10 games. Well, 7 games in Boston and Philly total, and then the 3 games in Colorado.
Yeah. So if you look at the 10-game road trip, 5-5 would be fantastic at this point. And they would still be under 500. They'd still be a game under 500 if they did that. What is your expectation? Like, I just don't want to see the bottom drop out of this thing. I want to see them, you know, come back home still in one piece, because if you have a terrible road trip against two really good baseball teams, the Rockies are dog crap right now. So, but
Right.
that again, it's going into Colorado, which
It's
is
Colorado,
another
man.
anxiety thing. So, um, if they go 5-5, 4-6, I think I'm happy. But if we see a 3-7 and a 2-8, that is going to be rough to bounce back from, because they're already under 500. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so Boston's pitching is fantastic, right? Bailey, who was our Andrew Bailey, who was our pitching coordinator for a few years, is over in Boston now. He's doing a fantastic job. But the Boston Red Sox are really, really, really good at kicking the ball around. They are pretty bad defensively, and that's why they're losing ball games that they should be winning, because the pitching staff is so good. So the Giants are going to go up against some buzzsaw starters. And like we just talked about in the Bleacher Report portion of this, the first 5 innings against starters, the Giants offense is rough. So I'm hoping they can go into Boston. They could beat up these starters early, but like you said, it is scary. You go to the East Coast, you see one of these games. It's a 10:35 a.m. start for us.
Yeah.
So that's 10:35 body clock for the Giants hitters. Um, you're talking about 1:30 in the afternoon in Boston, and they'll have been there for a couple of games. And then you go into Philly, which is weird, because this is one of those scheduling quirks that kind of started bumping around from last year in the scheduling department. But they go into Philly on a Friday. They play Friday, Saturday, Sunday night baseball on
Woo.
ESPN, and then they play a 1:00 game in Philly on Monday. So they're playing a Sunday night baseball game. Usually that's a getaway. You leave
Yeah.
town,
Yeah.
but this might actually work out well for the Giants, because they can play a 7 p.m. Philadelphia time game, come back the next day and play a, what is that, 4:00 Monday afternoon game. But then they have to get out of town and get all the way to Colorado for a 5:40 hour time start on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, Thursday. Then they come home for a nice home stretch. You got the Reds, you got the Dodgers, you got the Rockies, but you do have a home off day in between there, which is
Right.
kind of nice. And you're going to one of those Dodger games,
Yeah.
right?
I can't remember. It's I think it's early in the week. I want to say it's like Monday or Tuesday.
Okay,
At
yeah, they play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all 6:45 games there. But then a nice off day at home. So yeah, when we were kids watching the Giants too, when we were youth, little guys, that was always, they'd go into Philadelphia, they'd go into New York, they'd go into Atlanta, go into Montreal, and there would be these games that you would say, "Hey, we're on the East Coast, things look good." Go out to a lead, and then the bullpen would blow it, and you'd have weird games. You'd have a drop fly ball that would score 2 runs. Always something weird happens on the East Coast. So anytime I see the Giants take that East Coast swing, I get a little leery. Anytime they go into Colorado, I get a little leery, because you can go out to a 6-1 lead in Colorado in the 5th inning. Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Yep.
Especially when we have a team with a bullpen with a bunch of arms that throw really, really nasty breaking stuff. That breaking stuff hangs up in that thin Colorado air. So, yeah, like you said, it's a 10-game road trip. I would be super happy at 5-5. I would not be happy if you go 5-0 and then 0-5. I mean, there's a good way to go 5-5.
Yeah.
There's a bad way to go 5-5. So yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
I'd be happy with
I don't.
5.
I mean, I expect there's going to be a game or two that where we're just like, oh my god. But kind of bringing it back full circle, the big takeaway from the show that we just did is the starting pitching is giving them opportunities to compete. And so if you can
Right.
do that on the road with the young pitching, how does Kyle Harrison deal with, pitching in Boston for the first time ever? Actually, is he going to be one of the 3? Who's the
So the
rotation like this week?
rotation is Webb, to be determined, and Harrison.
Okay, so he'll get the 3rd game.
Yeah.
And look, man, that's got to be a big deal for him, right?
Right.
So how does he deal with that? I hope he's pumped, and I hope he's upticking a couple miles per hour on that fastball. But it's going to be Logan Webb setting that tone on Tuesday, and that if he sets that tone, you get one, and then you kind of the anxiety of being on the road and kind of dulls it a little. It's like, oh, we got one, we're
Yeah.
good. Let's play freely. So that's my hope. But yeah. So our schedule is going to be a little different upcoming for the month of May because we're doing 3 shows for Bleacher Report, which means we won't be doing live streams that week on this channel. We will upload the Bleacher Report audio and video to our channel, but just not as a live stream. And we'll do what we do here is we'll pad the end of it with some, our player of the week and just anything else we didn't get to on those shows. So what week or what days are we doing Bleacher Report shows so that because those weeks we're not going to be doing a live show on Monday?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are going to be doing 3 Mondays back to back to back. 3 Wednesdays. I keep messing that up. Originally scheduled for Mondays, but we are able to move it to Wednesday, which is more doable for us. And we like Wednesday afternoon podcasts as well, because sometimes it's right before our Giants game starts, which is kind of nice. So Wednesday, May 15th, Wednesday, May 22nd, and Wednesday, May 29th, all 11 a.m. Pacific time starts.
So those weeks that we do the Wednesday show, we will not have a live stream on Monday, but the audio will be up very soon thereafter on Wednesday. The video will get posted to our YouTube page. So just subscribe to BSPN on YouTube, and you'll get the little alert when we do put a show up that we had already recorded for BR. And yeah, there, if something happens, if there's some breaking news or whatever, or there's some reason for Brad and I to check back in live, we will do so. But that will be the schedule as of right now. And so just the long and short of it is Bleacher Report, they do give us a little bit of a stipend, which kind of helps us to be able to continue to do this show. So I just see it as, because there's hosting fees, there's streaming software fees, there's graphic fees that I pay for, and the Bleacher Report stipend does help pay for a lot of that stuff so that we can keep doing it. So that's why we're sort of prioritizing the Bleacher Report stuff over this channel. But it's because we're sort of striking while the iron is hot. Bleacher Report may tell us, thanks, but no thanks, guys. Right? So we need to take advantage of it.
They
But
would never.
but yeah, we're hopeful to create a fun relationship with them because we do like to be able to talk about this show in front of a different audience. We're hopeful that they come back to our channel and make this thing bigger. So all right, saying goodbye for a second time. For Brad, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.
Peace.